Well, like we said, we're glad to see you all here this morning, and I just want to speak to you for a little bit before we go and enjoy some time together. There is, as you saw this week at Vacation Bible School, we taught the kids, much like you saw in the song, Remarkably Made. We teach the kids that they are remarkably made. Now, for the longest time, when we would tell somebody the message of the gospel, we need a rag or something? Okay. For the longest time, we would tell people the message of the gospel, and we would start with sin. And we, of course, still think that's a very important point. Sin is when we do bad things. That's how we explain it to your kids. Sin is when we do bad things. We want to do bad things, and we simply don't because we're afraid to get caught or afraid to get in trouble or something like that. But we still have those desires, and we teach them as best we can about how that comes from Adam and Eve. But we've learned that when people don't know the rest of the story, what comes before that, there's actually a point that comes before that, and that is that God made people remarkably made. Human beings, according to the Bible, are made in God's image. That means that as you get older and maybe wrinkle a bit, you know, problems you have, I don't have, and maybe lose your hair. That problem I have. I could not shave on the very top and for a month and no one would notice. And we also tell the kids, you know, you look different than you really want to. Or maybe you are a bit heavier than you really think you should be. Or maybe you have some other body issue. Some people think that you have to be blonde-haired and blue-eyed to really make it in this world. And a lot of people are born with dark hair and dark eyes. And sometimes that's even related to their ethnicity. No one in their family has blonde hair and blue eyes. They never had a chance to have blonde hair and blue eyes. If you saw my little daughter that was screaming a fit while everybody else was singing and having a good time, she didn't have a chance to have anything other than blue eyes and blonde hair, I'm afraid. But no matter what it is, God made you just the way you are. And all people are made in the image of God. God didn't have His eyes closed when He made you. God made you the way you are, and He loves you just the way that you are. The only thing that messes that up, the only thing that kind of sort of interferes with that is we have sin. Sin is when we do bad things. Sin is when we go against God. And we have, as we went through the ABCs in the song, the cure for sin is to admit to God that you're a sinner, because we don't like to admit that we're wrong. To believe in Jesus, because God sent His only Son, Jesus, to live the perfect life we could not live, die in our place on the cross. And actually, I've been doing Vacation Bible School for a number of years. When I was a kid, C stood for commit or confess, or any number of C words. We would debate over which one it should be. Do you have to commit your life to the Lord to really be saved? Do you have to confess that Jesus is Lord? Do you have to confess each and every single one of your sins? And I would like to say, you know what? If you're willing to have Jesus be your God, instead of all of the other things of this world that compete for our attention, if you are willing to have God be your God and worship only Him, instead of worship your own selfish desires and worship all the things that television and movies and everything tells you to do, everything that Instagram is telling you to worship, we put all of those things on a pedestal, our own fame, other people. We're codependent. We rely on other people to give us our worth, and anything that does any of God's job for Him, we need to get rid of that. And here in America, we've decided that the number one thing that we are all after is to be happy. And I used to think that we had to tell people, don't worry about being happy. Don't be concerned about being happy. Be concerned about being holy. But you know what? People who submit their lives to God, guess what we are? When we realize, when we make ourselves a God or something else a God that shouldn't be a God, that God lets us down. That is not a recipe for happiness. But when we let God be God and we put God on the throne of our heart and we worship only Him, God does not let us down.